It started with a smell. Not a strong one. Not the kind that smacks you in the face. No, this was subtler, like old decay mixed with rust, dust, and something vaguely sweet. Faint. Faint enough to ignore, until you couldn't. The staff at the storage facility in Van Nuys, California, had written it off for months. They thought it was maybe old furniture, a moldy carpet, someone's forgotten collection of moth-eaten clothes. It wasn't the first time someone ghosted their rental payments. But something about Unit 307 always made the night staff nervous. And then came the call. Not to the owner, not to the police, but to a local investigative reporter who had been following a trail for years. One that began with the Duchess of Sussex, twisted through unregistered accounts, sealed court documents, and rumors of disappearances that tabloids were too scared to print. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. That reporter's tip led to a judge. That judge, after a brief private review, authorized an emergency opening of the unit under California state law. What they discovered inside would trigger a firestorm so large, even Buckingham Palace couldn't contain it. 3 human bodies, wrapped in plastic, labeled, preserved, and that was just the beginning. Let me ask you this. What would you do if a storage unit tied to one of the most controversial public figures in modern royal history, Meghan Markle, was suddenly opened under court order, and the very first thing pulled out was a human corpse? Would you believe it? Or would you call it a conspiracy? Would you think it's clickbait, some tabloid fantasy? But then, what if I told you the Los Angeles coroner's office was called to the scene within hours? That an LAPD detective confirmed, off the record, that the contents were beyond criminal, potentially catastrophic? What if I told you that several Netflix executives were briefed in private the very next day, and that Meghan Markle's entire PR team went dark for 48 hours? Now you're listening, because this isn't just a scandal. This is a seismic detonation. One that threatens to unravel everything we've been told about fame, power, and what really happened the year Meghan and Harry fled the royal palace. So let's back up. How did a random storage unit in California become the epicenter of the biggest royal mystery since Princess Diana's death? The answer lies in a series of strange, overlooked events that almost no one pieced together until it was far too late. Why was Meghan Markle paying cash for a storage unit under an assumed name for more than 5 years? Why did records show no movement in or out of the unit since 2020, despite monthly fees being auto-paid by an account allegedly based in the Cayman Islands? And most chilling of all, why were 3 corpses found inside, none of which had been reported missing? We'll get to that. Every dark corner, every paper trail, every voice memo, every sealed envelope. But right now, let's talk about why this matters. Because if you think this is just about Meghan Markle, you're missing the point. This isn't just about a disgraced duchess or her Hollywood reinvention. This is about something much larger. The collision of unchecked fame, abandoned friendships, corporate interests, and deadly secrets hidden in plain sight. It's about how easily someone can rebrand their entire life, erase the past, and hide the evidence behind a roll-down steel door at a $120 a month facility off Ventura Boulevard. It's about loyalty and betrayal, about the people who disappeared after speaking out, about the ones who tried to warn us, only to vanish from interviews, resign from their positions, or suddenly delete years of social media history. And it's about a certain child's toy, found wedged behind a box of Archwell gala gowns, still sticky with something red. Let's be real for a second. Meghan Markle has always been a lightning rod. Adored by fans, dismissed by critics, protected fiercely by corporate giants, and yet constantly under attack by tabloid media. But what if the truth has always been somewhere in the middle? What if, and stay with me here, both sides were wrong? Because the real story, the one that's been buried for years, isn't about racism or royalty. It's not about jealous siblings or palace intrigue. It's about a quiet network of silenced voices, burned bridges, misused power, and one unit, Unit 307, where everything came crashing down. Still think it's just gossip? Then explain this. The evidence log from the initial search of the unit reads like something out of a horror film. 3 full-sized body bags, a USB drive marked private, dozens of black and white printed photos, shredded but partially recoverable, handwritten letters signed only M, an expired UK passport with the photo page torn out, a silk scarf with dried blood, and a taped-up handbag containing something no one's willing to describe on record. What are the odds? And how does all of it trace back to a woman who once walked the steps of Windsor Castle in Givenchy couture, hailed as the future face of a modern monarchy? Now, here's what the mainstream media won't touch. One of the bodies found inside the unit? Maybe a former Archewell staff member who mysteriously quit in 2020 after citing psychological distress and unresolved legal matters. Their family has since been untraceable. No social media, no phone numbers, no press interviews. The second? An unnamed female believed to have worked on Meghan's Toronto team during her Suits era. She vanished from the public eye in 2018. The third? That one's the most terrifying, because sources say it's a man, not previously connected to Meghan publicly, but whose fingerprints match someone involved in an old police report from London. A report involving suspicious behavior around Frogmore Cottage. You won't find that in the headlines. Not yet, but you're going to find it here. Because what's been uncovered in that storage unit isn't just damning, it's dangerous. And someone is working very hard to make sure this story disappears. But here's the thing. You can't bury truth forever. You can stall it, smear it, call it fiction. But when 3 bodies are found in a sealed, anonymously paid unit with connections to one of the most famous women in the world, questions must be asked. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Across the next several chapters, we'll dissect the origins of the storage unit and who really paid for it, the timeline of people who got too close and then vanished, the mysterious USB drive and the video clip inside, the royal family's private reaction and what William did within 24 hours, the hidden letter addressed to Archie and what it could mean. Every question you've had, and many you haven't, will be addressed. Because this isn't just a story, it's a warning. And by the time we reach the end, you'll understand why Meghan's team is fighting tooth and nail to keep this under wraps. But they can't stop us now. The door is open, the stench is real, and the truth is rotting in the light. And just when investigators thought they'd cataloged everything, just when they thought the worst was over, they pulled out one final object, wrapped in black velvet, unlabeled, heavy. Inside was something that sent one officer straight to the hospital. But what was it? And why was it buried underneath Meghan Markle's wedding memorabilia? You're not going to believe what they found next, and it's only just beginning. What makes a man dial a journalist before he calls the cops? Think about it. What has to be sitting in front of you? What kind of unexplainable, blood-chilling, career-ending mess makes you pick up the phone, not to scream for help, but to whisper to a stranger in the media, "You're going to want to see this for yourself"? That's exactly what happened at 3:12 p.m. on a quiet Wednesday afternoon in Los Angeles. The caller was Raymond Ellis, a 47-year-old manager at the Van Nuys Self-Store Depot, a facility most people drove past without even noticing. Chain-link fence, sun-bleached paint, security cameras that worked half the time. The kind of place where washed-up actors stored broken furniture and music producers kept forgotten vinyls. Except Unit 307 wasn't full of furniture, and Raymond Ellis wasn't ready for what he found. The call landed on the voicemail of Deborah Finn, a veteran crime reporter with a reputation for chasing the stories everyone else was too scared to touch. She'd exposed trafficking rings, broken a cover-up inside LAPD internal affairs, and more recently, she'd been sniffing around something she called the Markle Trail, a loosely woven series of strange legal filings, vanishing assistants, and odd shell companies tied back to a name everyone knew, but no one could touch: Meghan Markle. The voicemail was only 8 seconds long. No intro, no names, just this: "You've been following her. Unit 307. It's open. You need to get here now, before they do." Click. That was it. No address. No context. But Deborah wasn't dumb. She'd been watching that facility for weeks. Months, even. It wasn't the first strange lead she'd gotten. But something in the voice shook her. Tight. Controlled. Like someone whispering into a gun barrel. She was in her car in under 60 seconds. Raymond didn't expect her to show up. He certainly didn't expect her to get there before the owners did. But that's the thing. No one showed up to claim the unit. Not Meghan. Not a lawyer. Not a rep. No assistant. No LA fixer with sunglasses and an NDA. Nothing. The unit had officially defaulted. 3 months of unpaid fees. The name on file? M.R. Hale. An address that led to a P.O. box. The phone number? Disconnected. But the payment history? Strange. Every previous bill, like clockwork, was paid by automatic transfer from a Cayman Islands holding firm named Dover Gray Limited. Except the payment stopped. Dead halt. 3 months ago, to the day. Why? And who let that slip? Raymond hadn't opened it immediately. He filed the paperwork, gave the unit the legally required 90-day grace, even sent a final notice that no one responded to. But something felt off. There were no signs of recent access. The padlock was rusted over. Cobwebs wrapped around the metal loop like vines on a forgotten tomb. And yet, the smell was growing. At first, they thought it was rats. Dead squirrels, maybe. But pest control came out twice and found nothing. One guy said it smelled like old meat. Another said it was sweet, like a broken fridge full of rotting fruit. But on that Wednesday afternoon, something told Raymond he couldn't wait any longer. So he popped the lock and opened a door to hell. Let's paint the picture. Raymond stood outside the unit, flashlight in hand. It was daylight, but the sun couldn't touch the darkness that seeped from the unit's mouth. The metal door groaned as it rolled up. Dust particles danced in the shaft of light like ghosts. Stale air hit him. Thick. Chemical. The kind that clings to your throat and makes your nose burn. Then came the smell. That's when he stepped back. Not forward. Back. Because he didn't just see clutter. He didn't see boxes or bikes or plastic tubs. He saw a mound, wrapped in black plastic, tightly wound, duct-taped, lying in the middle of the unit like a centerpiece. And behind it, 2 more, stacked, one smaller than the others. 3 human-sized shapes. And still, no label, no explanation, no sign of struggle, just silence. Here's where it gets strange. Raymond didn't call the police. He didn't even tell his assistant manager. He shut the door, locked it again, walked to the office, and sat there, sweating. Because weeks earlier, a woman had shown him a photo. It was Deborah Fenn, the crime reporter. She had come asking questions about a woman of influence and whether any units had been registered to her under pseudonyms. She showed him payment records, maps, even a surveillance photo of a woman entering late at night with her face partially covered. Raymond hadn't recognized her. But now the pieces were clicking into place. He picked up the phone and made the call. By the time Deborah arrived, Raymond had turned pale. She found him pacing the office, muttering to himself. She didn't ask for permission. She just walked past him, holding her press badge like a sword, and headed straight for the unit. Raymond followed, trembling. She had her camera rolling. It's that footage, grainy, uncut, breathless, that has since been pulled from every major platform. Taken down. Flagged for sensitive content. The kind of video that gets wiped without explanation. But we've seen it. And here's what it shows. Deborah slowly rolls up the door. The camera jitters. The light hits the pile. And she gasps. Not a scream. Not a cry. Just a sharp inhale. Like the kind that comes when a person sees something they weren't supposed to. She steps forward. Zooms in. Focuses. The plastic is stretched tight over a form unmistakably human. Shoulders. Knees. A curve of what could only be a face. The second figure? Same. The third? Smaller. Curled up. But it was what lay beside them that changed everything. A duffel bag. Unzipped. Half open. Inside. Documents. Dozens. Envelopes. Files. Sealed folders with royal insignias and a leather notebook labeled simply M. And that's when Deborah whispered, Jesus, this isn't just a dump site. This is a vault. But remember what we told you. The most disturbing part wasn't the corpses. It was the cover-up. Because within hours of the footage being captured, someone made a call. Not the police. Not the fire department. Not the coroner's office. A lawyer, representing a private UK-based media suppression firm, known for working with ultra-high net worth clients. They arrived within 6 hours. Black cars. Suits. Earpieces. They didn't knock. They didn't ask. They showed a single-page court document, sealed, and ordered the facility into lockdown. Raymond? Fired. Deborah? Threatened. The footage? Confiscated. But not before she sent a copy to a secure drive. Not before the screenshots leaked. Not before you saw them. And not before this story exploded. Now the question becomes, why? Why would Meghan Markle, global celebrity, former Duchess, Netflix dealmaker, be tied to a storage unit full of death, secrets, and royal dirt. Was she framed? Was someone trying to blackmail her? Or was this something worse? A vault of leverage? A kill box? A quiet grave for those who knew too much? Think I'm exaggerating? Ask yourself. Why did the payments stop only after Archwell's CFO was quietly replaced? Why did Meghan cancel a scheduled panel at the Bloomberg Power Women's Summit the very next day without explanation? Why did a UK royal correspondent tweet, "Everything's changed," then delete it minutes later? Because the phone call wasn't the beginning of a story. It was the end of silence. The moment the lies collapsed. And the moment a new truth began bleeding through the cracks. But remember when we said there was one last item buried beneath the wedding memorabilia? That black velvet pouch? Raymond never opened it. He couldn't. Because the second he touched it, he collapsed. Eyes rolled back. Seizure. Paramedics said it was a panic attack. But Deborah knew better. Because 2 days later, that pouch was intercepted by private security and vanished. No one knows where it went. But we do know what came next. Because deep inside that duffel bag was a handwritten note. Faded ink. Shaky hand. It read, "If you're reading this, I didn't mean for it to go this far." And it was signed with a single, unmistakable initial, M. But what did the rest of the note say? And who was it really meant for? We'll reveal the full contents in the next chapter, but brace yourself. Because what's written inside changes everything. Have you ever tried to disappear on paper? It's harder than it sounds. In the age of facial recognition, digital footprints, blockchain receipts, and always-on location tracking, hiding in plain sight isn't just clever, it's deliberate. Which is exactly what made the storage unit's paperwork so disturbing. Because no ordinary person could have pulled it off. Not without help. Not without training. So ask yourself, how does a duchess, a global celebrity, a woman recognized in every corner of the internet, manage to lease a storage unit for years under a name no one could trace? And more importantly, why? Let's dig in. When investigators began tracing the chain of custody on Unit 307, they expected a dead end. What they found was worse. A spiderweb. The lease documents were initially signed in late 2018, shortly after Meghan and Harry's wedding. Strange timing, right? You'd think someone joining the royal family wouldn't have time, or need, for a dusty California storage unit. But this wasn't just any unit. This was a climate-controlled, privacy-sealed, rear access unit located in a row reserved for VIP clients. Those who paid premium for discretion. At first glance, the lease was under a name, Margaret R. Hale. A harmless alias, it seemed, until someone remembered where they'd heard it before. Margaret Hale is the lead character in Elizabeth Gaskell's 1854 novel North and South, a woman known for challenging class systems and manipulating those around her under the guise of morality. Coincidence? Or message? Because when reporters dug deeper, they found 3 more aliases tied to the unit's history, each used to pay bills, sign access forms, or authorize deliveries. Rachel M. Dorsey, Clarissa T. Vaughn, Eliza C. Markle. You read that last one correctly. Eliza C. Markle. A name never before used by Meghan in public, but eerily close to her mother's maiden name, Ragland, and paired with the middle initial C, the same initial rumored to appear on legal trust documents filed in Delaware. Was this a slip-up? Or a breadcrumb? Here's where things spiral. Each of these names was tied to burner phone numbers, each one traced to prepaid SIM cards activated at kiosks in different states, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, all within 24 hours of each other. All purchased in cash. Now ask yourself, why would someone go to such extremes to disguise access to an ordinary storage unit? What was so important inside? What secret was worth years of deception? And most crucially, who else knew? Because these fake names didn't act alone. They had help. Let's talk about payments. From 2018 to 2023, the unit was paid for, religiously, by an entity called Dover Gray Ltd. A Cayman Islands-based holding company that, on paper, has no connection to Meghan Markle. But remember this name, Fergus Lennox. He's a former London banker turned wealth advisor who was spotted multiple times at Sussex-affiliated events from 2019 to 2021. Always in the background. Never interviewed. Never quoted. Fergus is the listed managing director of Dover Gray Ltd. He also owns 5 other entities that handle international tax shielding for ultra-wealthy clients. But here's the kicker. In 2022, he was seen entering Tyler Perry's Beverly Hills estate while Meghan and Harry were residing there temporarily. No press, no red carpet, just an unmarked car, a folder under his arm, and a 27-minute visit. Coincidence? Or was Fergus the silent fixer ensuring Unit 307 stayed buried? Because when the payments stopped in early 2024, Fergus disappeared, resigned from his companies, vanished from LinkedIn, emails bounced. Then came the death certificate. Died in a boating accident off the Amalfi Coast. No body recovered, no funeral, and no autopsy. Convenient? You decide. Back to the unit. Facility records show 0 physical entries between June 2020 and March 2024. No security footage. No visitors. Just silence. And yet, one entry on the digital log showed remote access override, meaning someone used a master code, one reserved only for upper management, to open the gate without being seen. And it happened at 3:14 a.m. on December 13, 2021. Just before a massive storm rolled into the San Fernando Valley. Just before 2 workers reported seeing a woman in a long coat, face obscured, hauling something wrapped in tarp toward Unit 307. They didn't report it. Why would they? This is LA. People wear wigs, cloaks, and sunglasses at night all the time. Until now. Because one of those workers came forward last week and gave investigators a sketch. It's not perfect, but if you look closely, there's no mistaking the jawline, the posture, the eyes. Was it Meghan? And if it was, what was she moving at 3 a.m.? And why wasn't it on camera? Let's take a breath. This is heavy stuff. But the weight of these details matter, because they paint a portrait, not of chaos, but of precision. A calculated effort to hide something in plain sight, using a fortress of aliases, foreign companies, offshore payments, burner phones, and blackout windows. And then came the voicemail. Remember it? The one that started this whole unraveling? Well, it gets weirder. Because investigators subpoenaed the facility's voicemail logs. And they found that the tip to Deborah Finn wasn't the first one. In fact, 4 other voicemails were left on her tip line, all from the same number. Each one cryptic. Each one hinting at the girl in the box, or the forgotten royals, or the silent 3. Each one left at exactly 3:07 a.m., mirroring the unit's number, 307. A code? Or guilt? We may never know. But here's what we do know. Every step of this leash trail leads deeper into a cover-up that spans continents, involves offshore accounts, media suppression firms, and, according to one former Archwell staffer, a shadow trust designed to disappear people. Their words, not ours. But it gets darker, because someone found a notary stamp on one of the lease documents. Not fake, not digital, real. And guess whose name it belonged to? An ex-legal assistant from Meghan's Toronto days. A woman who hasn't been seen since 2021, whose apartment was mysteriously emptied overnight. No forwarding address, no resignation letter, no goodbye, just silence. So we have, for aliases, all used to rent and manage Unit 307. Burner phones from 3 states. A Cayman Islands company with a vanished banker. Midnight entries. A vanishing legal assistant. A now-dead financier. All swirling around a single, silent unit, where 3 bodies were found lying in bags. And the most chilling detail? One of the aliases, Rachel M. Dorsey, used to be Meghan Markle's legal name before she married Prince Harry. Her middle name is Meghan, and she played Rachel Zane on Suits for 7 years. So why use that alias? Nostalgia? Or mockery? A message to someone who might come looking? Because let's be clear, no criminal leaves breadcrumbs by accident. No Duchess signs a lease as Rachel M. Dorsey unless she's daring someone to connect the dots. Unless she's playing a game. And we're all just catching up. But we haven't even touched the letter. The one discovered at the bottom of the duffel bag in Chapter 1. The one signed only with M. That letter wasn't generic. It wasn't abstract. It was a confession. A plea. Written in rushed cursive. Water-stained. Maybe tears. Maybe worse. It ended with these haunting words. They all knew. Every one of them. But I was the one who kept the proof. And now they want it back. If I vanish, no, it wasn't by choice. No signature. Just the initial. So the question is, was it from Meghan? Or to her, was she the author? Or the target? Because if she wrote it, she feared for her life. But if she received it, that changes everything. Because someone tried to warn her. Someone who knew what was in that unit. Someone who left it behind before they disappeared. And now? Now the aliases are out. The company is exposed. The pattern is unraveling. But the trail doesn't end here. Because one more name just surfaced. One that's never been connected to Meghan Markle publicly. A man whose signature appears on a delivery receipt dated May 2020. The only delivery ever officially logged for Unit 307. And that man was declared legally dead in 2019. But his signature matches perfectly. Who was he? What did he deliver? And why was he tied to the only known physical entry into the unit during the pandemic? We'll answer that in the next chapter. Because this name changes the game. And what he left behind might explain the corpses. Or worse, why there may be more. Let's face it, anyone can rent a storage unit. Anyone can use an alias. Anyone can hire a fixer, buy a burner phone, wire funds from an offshore account, or vanish behind corporate veils. But there's one thing you can't fake. A corpse. Bodies don't lie. They don't bend the truth. They don't sign NDAs or delete their Instagram. They rot. They stink. And eventually, they speak. So who were the 3 bodies found inside Meghan Markle's secret California storage unit? And why has every attempt to identify them been buried faster than the unit itself? Because when those black plastic wraps were sliced open, when the coroner peeled back the tape, pulled back the layers, and saw what lay beneath, nothing could have prepared them for what they found. Not just death, but intention. We begin with the first body. Adult male. Mid to late 30s. Approximate 5 feet 10 inches. Slim build. Autopsy results. Leaked to a crime blogger with an uncanny knack for breaking gag orders. Listed cause of death as blunt force trauma with evidence of post-mortem staging. In simple terms, he was beaten and then posed. He was dressed in a gray hoodie, worn jeans, and, oddly, a pair of white gloves. The fingertips of the gloves were singed. Not burned singed, as if briefly held to a flame or exposed to electrical current. But the detail that shook the room? His left hand clutched something. A gold chain with a pendant. Nothing flashy. Just a tiny, tarnished letter. A script H. Now pause. Because what's the first thought that hits you? Harry? Is that the connection? The bodyguard? The double? The shadow? Here's where it gets wild. Facial reconstruction from partial dental records suggested the man was Sean Akers, a former member of a private London-based security firm that once contracted with royal residences, and who vanished in 2019 after reportedly quitting for personal reasons. He was last seen in Toronto. Then, nothing. No passport activity. No family contact. No digital footprint. Gone. Until now. The second body. Female. Approximate. 40 to 45 years old. Mixed ethnicity. Scar on right shoulder. Found wrapped in a beige trench coat. No shoes. A torn Archwell badge tucked in her bra. She had once worked for Meghan. We now know this woman to be Camilla Roston, a senior assistant who allegedly left Archwell under mutual disagreement in 2021. But here's what's never been made public until now. Camilla filed a harassment complaint against the foundation months before her disappearance. The file was sealed. Her NDA was upgraded. And she was never heard from again. The autopsy? Asphyxiation. Strangled with the belt of her own coat. Her fingernails were broken. Scratches across her neck, arms, and lower back. A struggle, not an accident. And between her fingers, a clump of human hair, dark, straight, chemically treated. DNA matches? Pending. Delayed. Conveniently. But investigators aren't waiting. One source says the hair matches a sample collected from a discarded Starbucks cup outside Netflix's Sunset offices, allegedly belonging to a woman on Meghan's production team. No name given. But we'll dig deeper. Because Camilla fought back. And it cost her everything. And the third? The smallest. Female. Estimated 19 to 22 years old. South Asian descent. Dressed in jeans, a hoodie, and, heartbreakingly, mismatched socks. She had no ID. No scars. No dental records on file in California. But a tattoo on her wrist read, "The price of silence is never peace." Cryptic? Definitely. Personal? Without a doubt. Investigators believe she may have been a whistleblower, possibly tied to internal emails leaked from Archwell in early 2022. Emails that outlined conflicts of interest in Meghan's charitable dealings. Emails that mysteriously vanished, wiped, even from the cloud, until now, because alongside her body was a flash drive tucked in the sole of her left shoe, encrypted, unlabeled, and when cracked open, inside were 67 audio files, voice memos, recordings of meetings, arguments, threats. One featured Meghan's voice, allegedly. The words, "I told her to keep her mouth shut. This is how things work here." We're still verifying the authenticity, but if real, that voice memo alone could bury a dozen careers and raise more than a few corpses. 3 victims: a former security aide with royal connections, a staffer who filed an HR complaint and vanished, a whistleblower with proof, silenced before her story reached the surface. They weren't random. They were curated, and they were all found in positions that suggested staging, like warnings, like trophies, like messages. But sent to whom? And why store them in a self-storage unit in California? Wouldn't it be easier to disappear them entirely? Burn them? Bury them in the desert? Why preserve them? That question has haunted every investigator, every journalist, every coroner, and every insider who's dared whisper about this case. Until one theory emerged. And it's chilling. The vault theory. What if the unit wasn't just a hiding place? What if it was leverage? A dead man's switch? A vault of bodies, files, letters, and proof, held not to dispose, but to control? Think about it. What better way to silence enemies, ex-staff, or high-powered handlers than by keeping physical reminders of what you're capable of? One insider said, "She always said the past couldn't touch her unless someone dug it up. But she never mentioned she'd buried the past herself." So was this Meghan's doing? Was this the work of someone in her orbit? Or was she a pawn in a much darker game? Because we have to consider the unthinkable. What if these people weren't silenced by her, but for her? To protect the brand, the story, the crown jewel in Netflix's multi-million-dollar investment. We're not saying Meghan murdered anyone, but someone did, and they were close enough to her inner world to access her aliases, use her foundation's entry badges, know which names needed to vanish. That is the most terrifying possibility. That Meghan may not have known the full truth. That someone else did this, and she's been covering for them ever since. Let's go back to one moment. The pouch. The velvet pouch found buried beneath the gowns and documents. What did it contain? No official answer. But one source, who asked to remain anonymous, claims it held a 4th item. Not a body, not a letter, but a phone. Dead. No SIM. Smashed screen. But inside, a micro SD card. And on it, a folder titled, "Play If I Die." That phone has reportedly been seized. Its contents classified. But we're hearing whispers that the file contains a recorded confession, one that could answer every question you've had. Who orchestrated the murders? Why they were kept? And who's next? Because if there's one thing we've learned so far, no one around Meghan is safe. Not staff, not friends, not even her family. And the next body found might not be in a storage unit. It might be on the front page, or under a royal title. Now, before we move on, let's ask the question no one's willing to say out loud. Could Prince Harry have known? He lived with her, traveled with her, watched staff come and go, helped launch Archwell. Could he really be that out of the loop? Or did he look the other way? One former aide said, Harry wasn't dumb. He was in love. But even love has limits. And he knew the screams weren't just in his head. Take that as you will. But in the next chapter, we'll examine just that. The long, strange disappearances of Meghan's inner circle. Because these 3 weren't the first. And if the evidence is right, they won't be the last. Disappearances don't always begin with a scream. Sometimes they start with silence. A missed call, a calendar cancellation, an inbox that's never emptied again. No farewell post. No I've moved on tweet. Just nothing. And for someone like Meghan Markle, someone whose entire public persona hinges on connection, on warmth, on empowering women and telling her truth, the pattern of people vanishing from her life without a trace isn't just suspicious. It's terrifying. So here's the question no mainstream outlet dares to ask. Why does everyone close to Meghan eventually vanish? And no, we don't mean they just move on to other jobs. We mean people who leave and are never seen again. People who once called her a friend. People who worked on her team. People who knew too much. Because when you start looking at the timeline, really looking, the pattern emerges like bruises under a blacklight. Let's break it down. We begin in 2017, months before Meghan and Harry's engagement. Her personal assistant, Melissa Tabati, a French-born aide with high-level training and glowing royal references, was hired to help Meghan transition into royal life. Within 6 months, she quit. Royal sources at the time claimed Meghan was demanding. Others called her a perfectionist. But privately, Melissa told a close friend she felt erased. "I wasn't allowed to speak," she reportedly said. "I was a shadow." 2 weeks later, her NDA was activated. Her personal social media accounts went dark. Her family refused to comment. And since 2018, Melissa hasn't been seen publicly once. Where did she go? Why hasn't she resurfaced? Why does no one in royal media dare say her name anymore? Next came Amy Pickerel, a trusted aide who had previously worked for Prince Harry and was reassigned to support Meghan. She was supposed to be Meghan's right hand, managing charities, handling correspondence, running point on major events. And for a while, it seemed like she thrived. But then she too vanished. Amy resigned in 2019. Quietly. No exit interview. No Instagram farewell. No new job posting on LinkedIn. 1 week after she left Kensington Palace, she boarded a flight to New Zealand. No return ticket. She never came back. Want more? How about Samantha Cohen, the Queen's former assistant private secretary? She had been assigned to Meghan as a royal mentor, a 17-year veteran of the royal household. Battle-tested. Loyal. She lasted less than a year with Meghan. Sources claim Cohen was reduced to tears on multiple occasions. That she once muttered, "I've never seen anything like this," during a screaming match at Frogmore. She disappeared from royal circles shortly after. Rumors swirled that she was planning a tell-all, but nothing ever materialized. Why? What stopped her? And where is she now? Let's pivot. Because it's not just royal aides who've gone missing. It's friends. Remember Jessica Mulroney? Meghan's former BFF. Stylist. Bridesmaid wrangler. The woman once rumored to be closer than family. They were inseparable. Until 2020, when Jessica was hit with a social media backlash over a racially insensitive comment. Meghan didn't speak up for her, didn't defend her, didn't comment at all. Overnight, Jessica was erased. No public reconciliation. No "we've grown apart" explanation. Just gone. And then came the reports that Jessica had proof of Meghan's hypocrisy. Screenshots, voice notes, even a journal. One Canadian journalist claimed she was planning a media comeback to clear her name and bring receipts. And then, silence. She stopped answering messages. Her PR firm dropped her. One tabloid reported that her children were pulled from school for security reasons. What happened? What stopped her? And who, if anyone, stepped in? Even more haunting are the nobodies who disappeared. A makeup artist named Cara, who once toured with Meghan during her Suits press days. She gave an off-record interview in 2019 to a podcaster claiming Meghan wasn't who people thought she was. 2 weeks later, her Instagram was deleted and her phone disconnected. A personal chef named Luis who worked in Montecito for the Sussexes in 2021. He quit suddenly, citing health issues, and later told a former coworker, "I won't speak. It's not safe." A driver named Caleb who posted a blurry selfie of himself with Meghan outside a restaurant, only to delete it 6 hours later. The next day, he told followers he was leaving LA permanently and hasn't posted since. Coincidence? Maybe, but add it to the pile. Now, let's not forget the PR staff. Meghan and Harry cycled through 4 communications directors in less than 3 years. 4. That's not turnover. That's a purge. One of them, Sarah Latham, who previously worked for Hillary Clinton, was allegedly locked in a 3-hour shouting match with Meghan after a leak hit the press. The leak? An email from Meghan requesting absolute editorial control over a documentary being pitched to Netflix, including the right to approve or delete entire scenes post-filming. Sarah was gone within the month, and her last known comment to a colleague? "I should have known better. But now I know." Know what, Sarah? What exactly scared you into silence? This is where the emotional spike hits. Because it's easy to dismiss royal aides and PR execs as expendable. But these were people. People who believed in Meghan, who uprooted their lives to help her, who thought they were part of something bigger. only to be used, discarded, and in some cases, allegedly threatened into silence. You have to ask, what kind of environment leads so many insiders to vanish? To sign tighter NDAs? To move countries? To abandon careers? And why has not one single person come forward in a major media interview to say, you know what? Meghan is great. I loved working with her. Not one. That's not a coincidence. That's a culture, a pattern, a warning. But then, there's the twist. Because not all who vanish stay gone. A source close to the storage unit investigation claims one former aide, name redacted for security, has resurfaced anonymously. This person is cooperating with investigators. They're the one who confirmed the existence of the black velvet pouch. They're the one who claimed there were more than 3 bodies initially stored, and that the unit was cleaned once, in 2022, by external contractors. They're also the one who confirmed the presence of a kill list, a document containing names, photos, and last-seen notes. We haven't seen it, but if it's real, it explains everything. Because the names on that list, they match the vanished. They match the silenced. And there are more. Names still out there. People still alive. Still in hiding. So the clock is ticking. Because if someone went to this much effort to silence the first wave, what will they do to the next? Final question. Where does Meghan fit into all of this? Is she the orchestrator? The mastermind? The woman behind the curtain? Or is she being protected? Shielded by a more powerful machine? Netflix? Hollywood? The royal family itself? Remember, sometimes the figurehead isn't the one pulling the strings. Sometimes they're just the distraction. The pretty face while the real architects build empires from the shadows. And if Meghan ever tried to break free, ever tried to flip the script, tell the truth, maybe that's why the storage unit existed in the first place. Not to hide her crimes, but to remind her, we own you. But there's one last disappearance we need to talk about. One that never made headlines. One that was buried under news of Meghan's Archetypes podcast launch. Her former spiritual advisor, a woman known only as Celia, was reportedly fired after a difference in vision. She had guided Meghan for years. Through suits, through the palace, through the Montecito chaos. Her sessions were described as soul-saving. Until suddenly, she was gone. No website, no new clients. Her name? Removed from legal filings. And the building she once rented? Now vacant. But what's even more disturbing? The last Instagram story she ever posted, a quote from Carl Jung. It read, "The brighter the persona, the darker the shadow." It stayed up for 23 minutes, and then vanished. Just like her. Just like all the others. In the next chapter, we turn back to the storage unit. Because while Meghan's inner circle fell silent one by one, a single item found inside broke that silence wide open. A USB stick, labeled only with a red dot, and the files inside. They contained everything. Names, dates, recordings, transactions, and something that made one detective whisper. This goes beyond Hollywood. This is war. But who recorded them? And why were they buried with the dead? You'll find out next. It was small, insignificant looking. The kind of thing you might mistake for a cheap flash drive from a gas station checkout. Black plastic casing. Scratched. No keyring. No markings, except for one detail. A single red dot on the top. Painted? Maybe. Sticker? Possibly. But it wasn't just a decoration. It was a warning. Because the files on that drive, they weren't backups. They weren't family photos. They were a digital map to Meghan Markle's deepest secrets. The USB drive was found wedged between 2 envelopes inside a torn duffel bag. The same bag that held partially shredded photos. The same bag that reeked of mildew, dust, and something metallic, like dried blood and regret. It wasn't labeled. No brand. No serial number. Just that red dot. But when investigators plugged it into a secure machine, behind a shielded firewall, in a dark-lit evidence room, everything changed. Let's walk through what they found. Inside the drive were 4 folders, each one cryptically named. Crown_Fallout. MM_voice. Proof. Burn_list. That was it. 4 folders. No readme. No instruction file. No dates. Just quiet, ominous silence, and a sense that whoever made this didn't expect to live long enough to explain it. Let's take them one by one. Folder 1. Crown_Fallout. What was supposed to be inside? Memos. Draft letters. Screenshots of internal palace correspondence. Yes, real palace emails, and typed notes that looked eerily like someone documenting a psychological warfare campaign. We're talking strategy docs outlining press angles, messages from unnamed royal courtiers discussing how to limit her oxygen, mentions of Operation Soft Fade, a rumored plan to slowly isolate Meghan from royal duties while maintaining public optics. But it gets worse. One draft, titled "Her Exit Must Be Her Idea," outlined a PR approach that suggested deliberately creating discomfort behind palace walls to push Meghan into leaving voluntarily. Think about that. What if her infamous Oprah interview wasn't the beginning of her fallout, but the climax of an engineered exile? But here's the twist. The folder didn't stop at the royal family. No. It also included back-channel emails between entertainment attorneys, memos referencing Project Pacific, which, based on metadata, aligns with the Sussexes' move to California, and one chilling spreadsheet titled Asset versus Liability, 2020 Q1 Evaluation. Who makes a spreadsheet like that about a human being? Unless Meghan wasn't just being pushed out. She was being evaluated, tracked, used, and possibly disposed of. Folder 2, voice. This one is the most haunting. It contained 27 audio files. Some were voice memos. Others were recordings of conversations, likely captured using a phone or a pen recorder. The voice? Undeniably Meghan's. But the tone? Different. Cold. Calculating. Not the warm, media-trained tones of the Tig or archetypes. This was Meghan behind closed doors. Here are just a few snippets transcribed from the leaked files. If they push me, I'll burn them all. I don't care if it's William, or Charles, or that dried-up expletive. Camilla, I know things. She's getting too bold. Handle her. Or I will. They think I'm soft. Let them. That's when you strike. Tell Netflix I want final cut. If not, they'll get Chapter 5. You know what that means. Let's pause. What is Chapter 5? No one knows. But insiders believe it's a code name for this very drive. A threat. Leverage. Something that could ruin multiple powerful entities if ever released. Netflix. The royal family. Archwell. PR firms. Maybe even political allies. One investigator said, this wasn't a diary. This was blackmail. High definition, time-stamped, ruthless insurance. And suddenly, Meghan's endless calm in public makes sense. Because you don't panic when you're backed into a corner. If you hold the nuclear codes. Folder 3, proof. This was a catch-all. A terrifying mosaic of receipts, travel documents, WhatsApp exports, and surveillance photos. Yes, surveillance photos. Some taken with zoom lenses. Others captured by phone cameras. A few showed Meghan herself. But most? They showed other people. People close to her. Staffers laughing in cafes with known tabloid reporters. A certain PR exec leaving the Netflix building late at night, followed by an anonymous man. A well-known royal biographer accepting a mysterious envelope in Montecito. But one photo stood out. A grainy still frame of a woman wearing gloves, standing inside a warehouse, next to a black plastic-wrapped object the size of a human body. Timestamp: December 2021. That was the night Unit 307 was accessed at 3:14 a.m. Is this the missing proof? Is this the moment one of the corpses was deposited? If so, this changes everything. Because Meghan's face isn't in the photo. But the gloves? They match a pair seen in her now-deleted behind-the-scenes Instagram story from the Archetypes podcast set. Same trim. Same stitching. Coincidence? Maybe. But the metadata on the image was faked. Someone tried to scrub the time. And that's always a sign of guilt. Folder 4, burn_list. No folder should have that name. But this one did. And it held a single Excel sheet. Red font. Black background. 89 names. No explanation. Just columns marked. Full name. Affiliation. Threat level. Status. Some names were marked neutralized. Others, pending. One name had a yellow highlight. Catherine Middleton, observing. Yes. Kate. Labeled as a watch. Not enemy. Not ally. Observing. And right beneath her? Harry, undetermined. The rest of the list? Former employees. Reporters. YouTubers. Lawyers. Politicians. Even a few royals from European branches. And Meghan herself? Not listed. Because this wasn't her list. It was about her. Made by someone else. A handler? A spy? A shadow figure pulling the strings? We don't know yet. But we do know this. This was an active document, modified just days before the payments on Unit 307 stopped. And the last edit? The word Archie was added. No context, just the name, in red. So let's ask the hard questions. Was this USB drive made by Meghan? Was it made for her? Or was it compiled by someone close to her? Someone keeping score, documenting leverage, collecting insurance? And when you consider the bodies found beside it, the staging, the posing, the silence, it becomes clear. This wasn't just evidence. It was a message. To who? Maybe Netflix. Maybe the palace. Maybe Meghan herself. A reminder of everything at stake. And everything someone was willing to kill for. One last detail. The red dot on the drive? Not paint. Forensic analysis confirmed it was blood. Human blood. Type O negative. A universal donor. A universal threat. And the smear had a fingerprint in it. That print is being run through Interpol databases as we speak. And we're hearing whispers that it matches someone believed to be dead. Who? We'll reveal that soon. But first, we need to examine the video. Yes, there's more. Because buried inside a subfolder in mm_voice is a video file titled c_for_yourself.mp4. And the contents of that video? Well, let's just say it explains why Netflix has gone silent, why Meghan canceled her public appearances, and why one member of the royal family reportedly collapsed in tears after watching it. It's not just a scandal anymore. It's a war crime. Some truths aren't meant to be spoken. Some secrets aren't meant to be uncovered. And some videos? They were never meant to be seen. Ever. Because when investigators double-clicked on a file buried deep inside the USB, a file innocuously labeled c_for_yourself.mp4, they weren't prepared. Not emotionally. Not professionally. Not legally. And now, neither are we. What started as a series of eerie documents and whispered allegations became a living nightmare. Because this wasn't a deep fake. It wasn't AI-generated. It wasn't even edited. This was raw footage. Grainy. Unstable. But real. Undeniably real. And what it captured changes everything. Let's start with the first frame. A timestamp. July 18th, 2020, 2:36 a.m. Location? Unknown. But metadata places it somewhere within a gated estate in Montecito, just 3 months after Meghan and Harry settled into their new life in California. The camera is handheld. Wobbly. Someone is hiding behind a curtain. You can hear breathing. Labored. Nervous. And then, voices. 2 people. Arguing. A woman's voice, unmistakably Meghan's. And a man. Still unidentified. English accent. Slightly posh. Let's break down the dialogue. Meghan, I told you already. If this gets out, it's over. Not just for me. For all of us. Man. Then why did you keep it? Meghan. Because leverage is power. You taught me that. Man. I taught you discretion. There's a difference. Meghan. You think they'll protect me? After what I did. After what they know I did. Man. Then you should have burned it. Meghan. Long pause. It's not just documents. You don't understand. Man. What else is in there? Meghan. Bodies. Silence. Thick. Chilling. The man breathes in, sharply. Man. What the hell did you say? Meghan. They made me. I didn't kill anyone. But I knew. I knew. That's when the camera shakes. The person filming is trembling. You hear a muffled gasp. Someone behind the camera can barely keep steady. But the conversation continues. Meghan, now whispering. It's in the unit. The one under the name Hale. Just in case. Man, you said you shut that down. Meghan, I said I would. I lied. Man, you're insane. You're actually insane. Meghan, no. I'm a survivor. End of part 1. The second clip is shorter. 27 seconds. Same timestamp. Different angle. Possibly recorded through a second camera or phone. This time, Meghan is on a couch. Alone. She's staring at her phone. Her eyes are red. Tired. Empty. She hits record on a voice memo app and says, if I disappear, it wasn't suicide. And it wasn't an accident. Tell Archie. I tried. Then she deletes the file. Closes the app. Looks up, directly into the camera lens, as if she knows someone is watching. End of clip. Now ask yourself, was this a breakdown? A confession? A setup? Because here's the twist. We don't know who filmed it. Was it Harry? A staffer? An enemy? Or Meghan herself, creating insurance in case the people she feared turned on her? No matter the intent, the video changes the narrative because it confirms three crucial things. Meghan knew about the bodies. Meghan kept the storage unit active under a pseudonym. Meghan feared for her life. And that opens a very dangerous door. Was she the orchestrator? Or just another puppet in a much larger, bloodier game? Let's take a step back. In 2020, Meghan was celebrated as a symbol of resilience. A new mother. A royal refugee speaking her truth. An icon of feminism, race, and reinvention. But behind the closed doors of Montecito, a very different version of Meghan was unraveling. She wasn't planning charity galas. She was talking about corpses. She wasn't building peace. She was preserving evidence of crimes. This video wasn't just self-preservation. It was a plea, a digital time bomb, planted in case her world came crashing down. And it nearly did. Multiple sources confirm this file. C_for_yourself.mp4 was the smoking gun that prompted several powerful allies to abandon Meghan quietly in 2024. Netflix froze a documentary project already in post-production. Spotify retracted a second Archetypes season before announcing it publicly. A-list celebrities distanced themselves from Meghan at events, citing scheduling conflicts. One anonymous executive even said, "After we saw the footage, it wasn't about saving her reputation. It was about saving ourselves. No one wanted to be next. No one wanted their name on the burn_ list. And suddenly, the Duchess of Sussex became radioactive. Too big to ignore. Too dangerous to protect." But what was Meghan talking about when she said, "It's not just documents, it's bodies"? Which bodies? The ones found in the unit? Or others? Because an unnamed insider claims there was a fourth body previously stored in the unit, removed in 2022, before the payment trail went cold. If true, that suggests someone helped her, cleaned up the mess, removed the most damning evidence, before leaving behind just enough to burn her anyway. A betrayal? Or a final favor? No one knows. But the video ends with one last haunting moment. Clip 3. Only 11 seconds long. Filmed days later. Meghan is seen packing boxes. There's a window behind her, rain falling. She turns to the camera and says, "I was never meant to be the villain." But villains survive. End of file. Investigators believe this video is only part of a larger cache. Encrypted files, offline backups, possibly even additional footage stored elsewhere, on another drive, in another location. But so far, this is all we have. And it's enough to destroy her public image, implicate her inner circle, and reignite an active criminal investigation. In fact, one LAPD official allegedly told a journalist off the record, "We've seen some things, but this is on another level. Another level. Beyond Hollywood. Beyond royalty. Beyond damage control. This is criminal. Possibly international. Possibly worse. Because Meghan wasn't acting alone. And if this video proves anything, it's that she didn't think she'd make it out alive. So the question becomes, who was she really afraid of? Let's talk Harry. Where was he when this footage was filmed? Did he know? Was he present? Was he complicit? Or was he clueless, locked out of a world he couldn't understand, watching his wife spiral into secrecy and paranoia? A source close to the investigation claims Harry's name is never mentioned in any of the USB drive files. Not once. He's a ghost, a missing thread, which makes two things possible. He was intentionally protected by Meghan or by the handlers managing the fallout. He was irrelevant to the operation, uninvolved, uninformed, and possibly expendable. Either way, Harry is absent from this video, but the person behind the camera? Still unknown, still at large, and possibly holding even more. Now, let's end with the aftermath. Because this video shouldn't exist. It breaks every PR rule, every royal guideline, every Hollywood protocol. And yet, it was created, stored, hidden, and almost deleted. Almost. Someone wanted it found. Or maybe someone wanted it found eventually. If the bodies were ever uncovered. If the narrative crumbled. If Meghan was ever framed. Because that's the final possibility, isn't it? What if she didn't make the burn_ list? What if she didn't arrange the murders? What if the video is her proof, her last-ditch evidence, not of guilt, but of fear? A warning to the world. A desperate cry in the dark. If I disappear, tell Archie I tried. And with that, we turn to the most terrifying piece of evidence yet. Not a video, not a body, but a letter found inside the unit, addressed to Archie, handwritten, torn, stained, signed with a trembling M. And what it contains will shatter what's left of the fairy tale. They were just workers, low wage, undertrained, invisible. They didn't ask questions. They didn't make trouble. They didn't think the rich and famous stored corpses in climate-controlled units off Ventura Boulevard. Until one day, they did. Because the people who ran the Van Nuys self-store depot weren't reporters, detectives, or lawyers. They were ordinary staff, night shift clerks, part-time maintenance techs, and an underpaid assistant manager with a bad knee and a worse